Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video in the series The Alphabet Not That Silly, which delves into the origin and evolution of the letters we know today. In the first video, The Alphabet from Phoenicia to Greece, which I recommend you watch before this one by clicking on the card appearing in the top right corner, we discovered that, according to the legend, the Phoenician alphabet evolved into the Greek one by being passed down through Cadmus, son of the king of Tyre. The Phoenician alphabet, which was an abjad, which means an alphabet only constituted of consonants, underwent several transformations to eventually become the Greek alphabet, which includes the vowels we know today: A, E, I, O, and the letter Y for the sound U. A purely consonantal alphabet, like the Phoenician one, might seem strange to you. Yet, you use it every day in your text messages. Look at this message from John you just received. He says, PLS, we need to talk. Beyond your immediate concern about John's serious tone, you understand from the context that PLS means please, not pulse or plus. Beyond this transformation of certain consonants into vowels, it is important to understand that the Greek alphabet was built on acropictographic properties. We talk about acropictography when a word uses its initial as a pictogram. If we take an example from the first video, the word for door in Greek translates to pili and starts with the letter pi, which mirrors the shape of a door, as evidenced by the lion gate at Mycenae. These acropictographic properties made it very easy to learn to read and write using the correspondences between the shape of a word's initial and its pronunciation. Today, we will discover how the Greek alphabet, which emerged from the Phoenician alphabet, derived to give us the Latin alphabet by studying the acropictographic correspondence between the shape of the letters and their environment, according to Thierry de Mortin's theory. So sit back comfortably and get ready for a journey through the letters of the Latin alphabet. The letter A. The Latin letter A is exactly the same as in Greek. Same sound, same form. In the previous video, we saw that the shape of the letter A could represent the summit of a mountain. The Latins therefore adopted numerous Greek words that used this initial to designate anything at the top or at the extremity of something, notably through the prefix acro. For example, we find words like acra, point, extremity, acropolis, acropolis, citadel located at the summit of a mountain, acroteria, promontories, acraeus, epithet given to deities located on heights, and the adjective acrus, extreme. But it's not just about adopting existing Greek words. The Latins use this pictographic value of the letter A for new words, such as the verb alere, to raise, to grow, the adverbs altum, alta, and alte, at the top, or the noun apex, summit, peak, which stayed the same in English. These words have also given rise to other English words like altitude or eyrie, a high nest or dwelling place, especially of an eagle. The letter P. If you remember, in the introduction of this video, we saw that the sound P was associated by the Greeks with the letter pi, which echoes the shape of a door, called pili. We see here that Greek doors were generally made of two vertical columns topped by a horizontal lintel that extended slightly on each side. However, Latin doors evolved to become arched rather than straight, as seen in this image of the Porta Rossa in Velia. This style would later be known as Romanesque. While the word for door in Latin is indeed porta, and thus begins with the sound P, it is no longer pictographically relevant to use the letter pi. So, farewell to the letter pi. But then, where could the shape of the letter P come from? We can imagine that the letter P, in the eyes of the Latins, took the form either of a patina, which was the ancestor of the pan we use today, with its globular basin and handle, or of a patera, a shallow dish typically featuring a large rounded bowl with a tubular handle, used for ablutions before meals, often found in the ruins of Pompeii, associated with a jug for pouring liquid. Seen from the side, don't you recognize, through these tools, the outline of our letter P? The letter Y. The letter Y remains a vowel when transitioning from Greek to Latin and keeps the same U pronunciation. However, the Latins didn't simply import this letter as is. They also retained the pictographic value which had been assigned in the Greek alphabet. The shape of the letter Y thus either refers to the female genitalia, as shown by the Greek word eustera, which became eustera in Latin and still means womb, or to the hyacinth flower, Hyacinthus, whose origin traces back to Hyacinth, a young Spartan who was transformed into a hyacinth by Apollo. Note here that the word Hyacinthus starts with an H and not a Y, but it is likely that the word was originally written without this letter, which was later added to vocalize the word. Returning to our letter Y, the Latins not only adopted the letter as is, but also the key words that helped to decode it. The letter O. In Greek, the sound O can be written in two ways. On one hand, the short O sound is written as O and represents an eye. On the other hand, the long O sound is written as omega and represents an ear. However, the Latins kept only one form, the O, which can be short or long depending on the words. Why then did they choose the O form over the omega form? The letter omega, or long O, represents an ear in Greek, which was called otos, effectively starting with the letter omega. The word otos gave notably the word otitis in English. However, in Latin, the word for ear is auris, which starts with the sound a, or the diphthong au. In contrast, in Latin, the word for eye is oculus, and thus starts with the O sound, just like in Greek, ophthalmos. It is likely that because the word for eye begins with the O sound in both Latin and Greek, the Latins chose to preserve the pictographic significance of this letter. This pictographic value has been carried through many languages over time, from ayin in Phoenician to ophthalmos in Greek and then to oculus in Latin. It evolved into occhio in Italian, occhiu in Corsican, œil in French, ojo in Spanish, and olio in Portuguese. Returning to Latin, we also notice that other words starting with the letter O share its shape, such as oliva, olive, ovum, egg, or orbita, orbit. These words could also explain why the O gradually adopted the more elongated, oval shape we know today. The letter C. The Latins eliminated the letter K from their writing system and replaced it with the letter C. The letter C existed in Crete, notably alongside the letter pi, to express the sound P, as in peri, a prefix for perimeter, meaning around, which might explain its rounded shape. In Latin, its curved form, reminiscent of a horseshoe or the moon crescent crescens, allows this letter to be associated with the word curvus, which simply means curved or bent. One can also see it as a horn, or cornu, the beautiful musical instrument played in Pompeii, which took its name from the cow's horn from which it was made. Isn't this a way to pay homage to that metal-working civilization which gave birth to the horseshoe, the fishhook, and other objects forged on the blacksmith's anvil, as well as to music and the moon, the celestial body of the night? The letter B. In Greek, the letter beta was associated with the word bios, which means bow. But in Latin, the word for bow is arcus. So, at first glance, there's no sign of the B sound. But hold on. If we dig a little bit deeper, we discover that the Romans invented an even more sophisticated weapon than the bow, called the ballista, which gave the English word ballista, with two L's. Here, we do indeed find the B sound again. But what about the shape of the ballista? While some versions of this weapon were used to catapult stones, others were designed to launch bolts, or javelins. These weapons had a shape similar to a crossbow, two curved arms stretched by a string, which were drawn by a lever mechanism. In the letter B, the vertical line could represent the string, the two curved branches at the top and bottom, the two launching arms, and the horizontal line in the middle, the javelin. The letter H. In Greek, the letter eta holds the pictographic value of the word emi, meaning half. Indeed, we notice that the H can be read as the sum of two halves, with the horizontal line creating a symmetry between the upper and the lower parts of the letter. In the transition to the Latin alphabet, the H retains its pictographic value but undergoes a significant phonetic transformation. It becomes an aspirated H and is systematically paired with a vowel at the beginning of words. Thus, the Greek prefix emi becomes emi in Latin. The H is replaced by an H and an E. With this modification, the Latins imported dozens of words starting with this prefix, such as hemicyclium for hemicycle. The H is another example where the Latins adopted a letter along with numerous words starting with that letter, thereby preserving its pictographic value. The letter N. In the Greek alphabet, the letter N was associated with the word nema, meaning thread of the weft. Indeed, an infinite repetition of N creates the following pattern, which evokes the movement of the shuttle during the weaving of fabric. While the word nema doesn't exist as such in Latin, there is the verb nere, which means to weave fabric or to braid, essentially making ends with hair to create braids. It's notable that this verb nere consists of the root ere, the infinitive form for many Latin verbs, and the letter N. Thus, only one letter, the letter N, represents the action of weaving. Like the previous letters, the letter N has retained its pictographic value as it transitioned from Greek to Latin. The letter S. The Greek letter sigma is replaced in Latin by the letter S, with more sinuous shapes, like the curves of a winding road. Could it be that the letter S is the shape of a sine wave, called sinus in Latin, for sinuous, or simply the silhouette of a serpent, named serpens? In the Villa of the Centenary in Pompeii was discovered this magnificent mosaic of a serpent, which was said to represent prosperity and which was prominently displayed in the dining room. The letter T. In Greek, the letter T represented, in a simplified form, a balance, which was called talenton, and gave rise to the Latin word talentum, referring to a weighing scale. Then, the word talent later came to mean sum of money. However, the balance can also remind us of the Latin word tribunal, which is the same word in French and signifies court, which was literally the place where the tribunes, or magistrates, spoke. In the court, there was also the tabela, or tabula, the ballots handled to the judges used for delivering verdicts or electing a candidate. Similarly, there's the verb taxare, which means to evaluate or to assess. Thus, the letter T remained unchanged both phonetically and graphically and retained its acropictographic value as it transitioned from Greek to Latin. The letter U. The letter U made its appearance rather late in the Latin alphabet. Initially, it was represented by the letter V, as both shared a similar pronunciation. However, this pronunciation differed in certain words. At the beginning of the word unus, una, one in Latin, the V is pronounced as U. At the start of the word victor, victor in Latin, the V is pronounced as V. Doesn't it evoke the two fingers raised in a sign of victory? Therefore, this led to the necessity of creating a new letter, the letter U, to differentiate these two pronunciations. By observing the shape of the U, we notice that the two vertical lines can resemble two ones, meaning two in Roman figure, and the curved line below serves to connect these two units into one. Thus, the U is a symbol of union, as evidenced by the verb unire, which means to unite, to reunite, to make one. Here we are at the end of this second journey through the letters of the alphabet, from Greece to Rome. We have seen that many letters have retained the same shape and the same acropictographic values as they moved from Greek to Latin, such as the letter A, Y, O, B, H, N, and T. However, other letters have undergone pictographic transformations, like the letters P, C, S, or U. The Phoenician alphabet gave rise to the Greek alphabet by connecting it to the Greek language, which in turn gave rise to the Latin alphabet by connecting it to the Latin language. But the alphabet's journey did not stop at the gates of Rome. After starting from Lebanon and spreading through Arab and Hebrew countries, then to Greece and Italy, the alphabet continued its journey into Europe, as well as Russia and Ukraine, before spreading throughout the rest of the world, continuing its transformation. Above all, the alphabet is what allows humans to communicate, to understand each other, to share their ideas. Like the U, the alphabet is what unites us and enables us to live in harmony and peace. And many mysteries remain to be uncovered regarding its evolution. But that may be the subject of a new video, so stay tuned on the channel of the alphabet Not That Silly.